It's the kind of night that makes your bones ache. Cold gnaws through Maya's thin jacket, sneaking under her skin and settling somewhere deep inside. The city, somewhere on the East Coast, maybe Philadelphia or Baltimore, hums and groans, but not for her. Yeah, neon flickers above empty storefronts. A city bus groans to a stop and pulls away again, leaving only wet tire tracks in the gutter and a few greasy bags pressed flat by shoes. Somewhere, a siren shrieks. No one's coming for Maya. She's 16, old enough to know how to stay invisible, young enough to wish sometimes she didn't have to. Tonight, and hunger bites almost as hard as the wind. Her hands, cracked and raw, dig through a trash bin behind Patty's diner. She doesn't remember the last hot meal. A few fries in a soggy paper tray. Score. Her heart thuds faster when she finds half a ham sandwich, a miracle with barely a bite out of it. She ducks behind the dumpsters, shoving greasy hair out of her eyes, and sits on a crate. The alley's half lit by the pink and green glow of the open 24 hours sign. Her teeth chatter as she unwraps her prize. Mind on nothing but calories. A sound, soft, almost more vibration than noise. Maya freezes, sandwich halfway to her lips. There, just beyond the reach of neon, something shifts under a sheet of cardboard. She squints. Two eyes catch the light. Reflected. Gold. Animal. A low whine. Maya's gut tightens. Most strays in this city are trouble. Desperate. Mean. But this one. She can see the curve of ribs under patchy black and tan fur. The dog, bigger than she expected, almost regal even in misery, or trembles as he huddles close to the wall. He's not growling. He just stares, tongue lolling, shivering. For a moment, the two of them just look at each other. Maya glances at the sandwich. Her stomach clenches, the ache almost a living thing. She hesitates, then tears the sandwich in half with shaking fingers. She slides a piece across the wet asphalt toward the dog, careful not to get too close. He watches her, not moving. Maya whispers, just to hear herself, "Go on. I'm not gonna hurt you." At first. Nothing. The dog's head is low, shoulders drawn tight, but slowly, so slowly she almost misses it. He inches forward. He stretches his neck out, sniffs the air, then snatches the sandwich and gulps it down, not once taking his eyes off her. She lets out a shaky breath and nibbles her half, chewing so slow it barely feels real. She thinks about her old life, a bedroom with posters on the walls, the smell of coffee in the morning, her mom humming off key in the kitchen. That life feels further away than the moon. The dog licks his muzzle and sits, looking at her with something almost like understanding. She sighs, gathering her backpack and the last of her dignity. "Well, buddy," and she murmurs, "I guess it's just you and me tonight." But the dog doesn't answer, just shifts closer, settling a few feet away, keeping a wary eye on both her and the alley's shadowy corners. Maya curls up in her thin hoodie, knees to chest, as wind rattles a loose sign overhead. Her body aches. Her mind, even more so. She wants to believe she can last another day. But under the roar of the city and the gnawing of her stomach, she wonders if she's fooling herself, if the cold will win tonight. She tries to sleep, but the noise never stops. Sirens, shouts, a distant crash. Her nerves prickle at every sound. She glances at the dog, startled to see he's watching her, head on paws. There's a scar above one of his forepaws. An old wound. It makes him look tougher, but his eyes are soft, tired, but soft. Maya tugs her knees tighter. "You got a name?" she whispers. The dog just blinks. She's not sure when her eyelids finally droop, but when they do, the last thing she sees is that black and tan shape curled up against the far wall. The city forgets them both. Hungry, cold, invisible. But in the hush between car alarms, Maya dreams, for the first time in a long while, that maybe she's not alone anymore. Morning comes slow, gray, and cruel. Maya's joints creak as she unfolds herself from her makeshift nest. Her breath puffs in the freezing air, little clouds vanishing before they can warm her face. She rubs her arms, wishing she had gloves. Her shoes, 2 sizes too small, found in a thrift bin, squish with yesterday's. Rain. The dog is in there. He lifts his head, yawns, and stretches. He looks a little less afraid, a little less likely to bolt. Maya digs in her pack for anything edible. Half a granola bar, stale, but still food. She breaks off a chunk and tosses it toward him. He takes it, this time with a little more trust, and when he's done, he moves a step closer. Close enough that Maya can see his fur is matted, thick with city grime. But he's strong beneath it. A survivor. She stands, brushing dust from her jeans, and slings her pack over one shoulder. "Guess you should stick around, huh?" she mutters, unsure if she's talking to the dog or herself. She steps into the street, shoulders hunched. The dog follows, paws silent on the wet pavement, and as Maya disappears into the waking city, she feels strangely like something has shifted, as if, for the first time in ages, someone is watching out for her. Maybe she thinks this is the start of something new. The city wakes with a grumble and a hiss. Trash trucks clatter, someone curses into a cell phone. Old men in worn Carhartt jackets argue about football near the subway stairs. Maya weaves through it all, head down, hands jammed into her pockets. She's learned not to meet anyone's eye. In this city, looking like you belong is half the battle. But now, she's got a shadow. Literally. The German Shepherd, black and tan, strong despite the dirt, gaze wary, pads behind her, matching her stride. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to make her nerves tingle. Every time Maya glances back, he's right there, amber eyes following her every move. Sometimes she tries to change direction, ducking into alleys or slipping through backlots. Still, he follows, silent as a ghost. People notice, but nobody says a word. Homeless kids with dogs aren't rare, not here. At first, Maya tries to shake him. She walks faster, zigzags between blocks, even hides behind a chain-link fence, heart pounding as she waits for him to pass. He sits at the corner, tongue out, waiting. No matter how long she hides, he waits. Eventually, she gives up. "Fine," she sighs. "But if you start talking, I'm out." She names him Shadow, partly as a joke, partly because it fits. When she tests the name out loud, soft, just above a whisper, his ears flick like he knows it's meant for him. Shadow doesn't bark, doesn't whine, just watches. Always alert, tail low, but wagging when she glances his way. She finds herself talking to him in snatches, the way people talk to themselves when they think nobody's listening. "Guess you like the cold, huh? Think we'll get lucky at the soup kitchen? Bet you were somebody's dog once. Weren't you?" No answer, of course, but Shadow's eyes say plenty. That morning, Maya spends her last $4 at a corner bodega. She scans the shelves, soup for herself, or something for the dog. Her stomach twists, gnawing and raw. But she grabs 2 cans of off-brand dog food and a bottle of water. "You'd better appreciate this," she mutters at the register. The clerk eyes her, then eyes Shadow, then says nothing at all. They find a quiet spot behind an abandoned laundromat. The concrete cool beneath Maya's jeans. She pops open the can, grimacing at the smell, and dumps it into an old pie tin she found in the trash. Shadow eats like he hasn't seen food in days. Maybe he hasn't. He pauses halfway through, glancing at Maya as if checking she's still there. Maya's own stomach complains. But she ignores it, telling herself she'll eat later. She watches him, this silent, steady creature who's chosen to follow her. She wonders if he's lost like her, if he's waiting for someone who isn't coming back. As dusk falls, the city shifts again. Shadows lengthen, cold creeps up from the concrete. Maya tugs the hood of her jacket lower, looking for a place to spend the night. They end up in an alley behind an auto shop, squeezed between stacks of old tires and an abandoned mattress. She unfolds a piece of cardboard, smoothing it out, and sits cross-legged. Shadow curls up beside her, nose tucked under his tail. Maya talks to fill the dark. "You know, I used to have a dog, Little mutt named Peanut. He'd sleep on my bed and hog all the covers. Mom hated that, said I spoiled him too much. Guess I just liked having something to take care of. Funny, huh? Shadow blinks at her, then rests his head on her knee. His warmth soaks through the denim, unexpected and steady. A gust of wind rattles the alley, and somewhere a cat yowls. Maya shivers, pulling her jacket tighter. She glances at Shadow, grateful for the living, breathing company. For the first time in a long while, the night feels less empty. She remembers the way her mother used to tuck her in, the sound of her dad's laugh echoing from the kitchen, the smell of pancakes on Sunday morning. That life feels impossibly distant now, blurred by hunger and cold and the relentless march of days on the street. Maya stares at the sky, searching for stars beyond the city haze. She finds one, faint but steady, and wonders if her family is looking up at the same sky. She whispers, "Good night, Peanut. Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad." Shadow shifts closer, pressing against her side. Somewhere nearby, a police cruiser rolls past, headlights sweeping the alley. Maya holds her breath, heart hammering. The car slows, windows down. Shadow freezes, body tense. Maya's pulse thrums in her ears, but the car moves on, taillights flickering red against brick. Relief crashes over her. She lets out a shaky laugh, breath puffing in the cold air. "Guess we're safe tonight. Shadow," she murmurs. "For now, anyway." Sleep comes slow, dragged down by the weight of hunger and the ache of muscles unused to comfort, but it comes. Maya dreams of a house with blue shutters and a porch swing. She dreams of pancakes, of Peanut's warm fur, and her mother's gentle hand. In the dream, Shadow is there too, whole and shining, running through a sunlit yard. Morning brings gray light and the distant clang of church bells. Maya wakes stiff and sore, but alive. Shadow is still there, curled beside her, breathing slow and deep. She sits up, stretching her arms overhead. Shadow yawns, exposing a row of sharp white teeth, then nudges her hand with his nose. Maya grins, unexpected and real. All right. Breakfast time. She digs for the second can, pops it open, and offers it to him. Shadow eats, but slower this time, pausing often to watch her. When he's done, Maya stands, brushing dust from her jeans. She shoulders her pack and looks at him. "Ready?" Shadow's tail thumps once against the pavement. He falls in behind her as she steps out into the waking city. Together, they move through the maze of alleyways and backstreets, unseen by most, ignored by all. But to each other, they are visible. They are real. For the first time in months, Maya doesn't feel invisible. She glances back at Shadow. He blinks at her, head cocked, and for a heartbeat, she almost laughs. It's not much. A girl and a dog, hungry and homeless, facing a world that doesn't care. But for Maya, it's enough. For now, it's everything. Maya learned quickly that every day on the street meant inventing a new way to survive. Some mornings, she'd wander the Riverwalk, hoping for spare change. Some afternoons, she'd hang around the library, soaking in the heat and the illusion of normalcy, pretending to browse magazines. But her luck, like the frost on the city's windows, was always temporary. For the past week, Maya had found a sliver of routine. A waitress named Angie, tired-eyed but kind, would slip her a leftover biscuit or a cup of coffee behind Patty's diner. When the diner's dishwasher quit mid-shift, Angie handed Maya a dish towel and a wink. "You look like you could use a few bucks. Don't tell the boss." Washing dishes was hard, cold work. Her hands red and swollen from the sting of hot water and soap, her back aching after hours hunched over sinks. But it was a work. It's honest work, and it made her feel almost like a regular kid. Tips weren't much, but they added up. Enough for a granola bar, a pair of dry socks, sometimes a sandwich split with Shadow. Shadow always waited behind the dumpsters, tucked into the shadows where no one would see him. He knew the drill. When Maya slipped him crusts or leftovers, he ate quietly and vanished if footsteps came too close. A silent pact between two lost souls, clinging to what little comfort they'd found in each other. One gray afternoon, Maya was scrubbing a mountain of greasy plates when she caught the sharp voice of the manager, Mr. Finnegan, echoing from the alley. She froze, heart thudding. "Who's there? Hey, get away from the trash." Maya darted to the back door in time to see Finnegan looming over Shadow, who was pressed flat against the wall, ears pinned and tail tucked. "That your mutt?" Finnegan spat, eyes narrowed. "No, sir," Maya lied, voice trembling. "He's just hungry. He's not bothering anyone." Finnegan's gaze sharpened, landing on her apron. "No pets. That's the rule. You want to keep this job, you follow it." He jabbed a finger at her, face flushed with anger and the kind of disappointment Maya remembered from teachers and social workers. "No second chances. You're done." The words slammed into her like a punch. Fired just like that. No more tips, no more warm bread at the end of a shift, no more small, steady things that made life a little less impossible. She stood silent as Finnegan stalked away, her fists balled tight, eyes burning. When the door slammed shut, she knelt beside Shadow, burying her face in his fur. He licked her cheek, gentle, steady, reminding her she wasn't as alone as she felt. That night, desperation clawed at her insides. With no job and no money left, Maya drifted from shelter to shelter. She'd heard about a new women's shelter on Jefferson, where the volunteers handed out clean socks and hot soup. Maybe they'd let her and Shadow stay for the night. She stood in line, shivering in the blue glow of streetlights. Shadow pressed against her leg. When her turn came, a woman with clipboard and a tired, polite smile shook her head. "No dogs. You can come in alone, honey." But he can't." Maya's throat closed. "Please, he's all I have." The woman hesitated, then lowered her voice. "You can't take care of him if you're sick. Now get some rest, then come back for him in the morning." But Maya shook her head. "I'm not leaving him." She left, cradling Shadow's head in her arms as they melted back into the city's endless night. She wondered if this was what love really meant. Not flowers and promises, but the quiet certainty of refusing to abandon someone when the world demanded you let go. The air felt sharper, biting. Maya's jacket seemed thinner than ever. She wandered for hours, looking for somewhere, anywhere, they could both be safe. They ended up beneath an overpass, the sound of passing cars above like the surf of a dark, indifferent ocean, a sheet of cardboard, some newspaper. Shadow curled close beside her. She closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Hunger gnawed at her stomach. Fear gnawed at her mind. The next day was harder. Her world shrank to the search for food and warmth. Maya watched as a couple in business clothes threw out half their sandwiches. She waited until they left and then rushed over and grabbed the bag, barely noticing the stares of passers-by. Shadow ate what he could, never complaining, always grateful. Rain started in the afternoon, a cold, relentless drizzle that soaked through her hoodie and left her teeth chattering. Maya pulled her knees to her chest under an awning, wrapping her arms around Shadow. She felt the loss of the diner like an ache, the absence of even the smallest safety net leaving her adrift. She tried the other shelters, other food lines, but everywhere she went, no dogs. Rules are rules. Maybe if you came alone. Once, an older man at a soup kitchen offered her a cot and a bowl of stew. If she left Shadow tied up outside, Maya pictured him out there, alone, and shook her head. She'd rather face the night together, hungry and cold, than let him out of her sight. That evening, as they huddled in the shadows of a loading dock, Maya's resolve cracked. Tears spilled, silent and hot, as she buried her face in Shadow's neck. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I'm so tired of fighting. Shadow, I wish—" She didn't finish the sentence. Shadow didn't need words. He just pressed closer, his steady warmth anchoring her as the city rushed on, blind and uncaring. Yet even in the bleakness, a strange strength flickered inside her, losing the little she had, the job, the crumbs of normalcy, the chance at a safe bed, hurt more than she could say. But she still had Shadow. She still had herself, and sometimes that had to be enough. They wandered until midnight, searching for shelter that would take them both. Finally, Maya found a construction site half-finished and deserted. She led Shadow behind stacks of lumber, settling onto a pallet beneath an open sky. The city loomed above, stars hidden by streetlight and clouds. As Maya drifted to sleep, listening to Shadow's slow breathing, she made herself a silent promise. She would not give up. Not on herself, not on Shadow, not tonight. Because even if the city had forgotten her, even if everything she had was slipping away, Maya knew that loving something, someone, meant refusing to let go. Even when it hurt. And in that, she wasn't lost at all. Maya pressed her knees to her chest, the sharp scent of sawdust and cold metal lingering in the half-built skeleton of the construction site. It was late. Maybe midnight, maybe later. Somewhere in the city, laughter drifted from a bar, hollow and distant. Car horns pulsed on a nearby avenue. But here, among stacks of plywood and concrete blocks, it felt like the world had narrowed to just Maya, Shadow, and the dark. Shadow circled once, then settled beside her, his warm body anchoring her against the chill. Maya ran her fingers through the thick fur behind his ears. In the hush, she let herself believe they'd be safe tonight. But safety in the city was always borrowed, never owned. Somewhere beyond the fence, voices echoed. A group of kids, their laughter sharp and wild, cutting through the stillness. Maya tensed. She knew the sound. She'd heard it before. Packs of teenagers roaming the city after curfew, bored and reckless, always looking for something or someone to break. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, whispering to Shadow, "Stay quiet." He stilled, ears pricked, eyes locked on the gap in the fence. The voices grew closer. 3 boys, maybe 4. Their sneakers slapped the sidewalk, their words slurred and mean. "Bet there's squatters in there," one voice sneered. "Let's check it out. Maybe we'll find a stash." Maya's heart hammered. She knew better than to run. Movement attracted attention. She held her breath, willing herself to disappear. A flashlight beam swept the sight, slicing through darkness. It paused, too long, on the pallet where Maya and Shadow huddled. "Hey, what's this? Yo, someone's in there." The boys pushed through the gate, crunching over gravel. One, tall with a red beanie, grinned at Maya, all teeth and cruelty. "Well, look what we found. Little runaway in her mutt." Another, ears smaller but mean-eyed, tossed a half-empty can of soda at her. It missed, spraying sticky liquid across her jeans. Shadow growled low, a sound that started in his chest and vibrated through the boards beneath them. "Chill out, mutt," the tall boy sneered, stepping closer. He jabbed a sneaker toward Shadow. "What's he gonna do, bite me?" Maya scrambled to her feet, blocking the boy's path. "Leave us alone. We're not bothering anybody." The mean-eyed kid laughed, cruel and high. "This is our spot now. Get lost. Or maybe we'll teach your dog a lesson." Without thinking, Maya stepped forward, planting herself between the boys and Shadow. Her voice trembled, but she forced it out. "Don't touch him." The boy in the beanie shoved her hard. Maya staggered, landing painfully on her hip. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. Shadow lunged, not to bite, but with a sudden deep bark that thundered in the narrow space. The boys jerked back, startled. Shadow's fur bristled, his body low and tense, every muscle ready. He barked again, louder, fiercer, sending the echo ricocheting through unfinished walls. For a second, nobody moved. The boys hesitated, glancing at each other, their bravado wavering. He's gonna snap," one whispered. "Let's go." "Not worth it," said another, voice cracking. They retreated, their steps quickening as Shadow advanced a single step, hackles raised, bark still rolling from his throat. When the boys disappeared through the gate, Maya collapsed to her knees, shaking. Shadow returned to her side, nosing her hand, his tail wagging just once as if to say, "It's over. I'm here." Tears welled in Maya's eyes. She pressed her forehead to Shadow's, her breath coming in hiccuping sobs. "You're all I've got," she whispered, her voice breaking open, raw and real. "All I've got." She let herself cry, silent and shuddering, holding onto Shadow like he was a lifeline. The city's noises faded for a moment, their little world shrinking to the space they shared, the warmth of his furs, the steady sound of his breath. After a while, Maya's tears slowed. Shadow settled against her, his big head on her lap. She stroked his ears, feeling the tremble in her hands begin to ease. The adrenaline faded, replaced by exhaustion. Maya lay down, pressing herself against Shadow, needing his warmth as much as his presence. The boards beneath her were hard, the air icy, but Shadow was steady, a shield against the dark. Sleep came in fits, a memory of her mother's lullaby, the scent of pancakes and coffee, the sound of laughter around a table that no longer existed. She woke every hour, heart pounding, but each time she did, Shadow was still there. Before dawn, Maya woke to silence. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, feeling every bruise and ache from the night before. For a moment, fear threatened to choke her. What if the boys came back? What if someone else found them? What if... But Shadow lifted his head, yawned, and rested his chin on her knee. His eyes met hers, calm and sure. Maya pressed her palm to his chest, feeling his heartbeat, slow, steady, real. In the first gray light, she whispered, "Thank you." They slipped from the construction site as the city began to stir. Maya felt different, changed. She had been afraid, and she had stood her ground. She had lost nearly everything, but she still had Shadow. And in that, she found a sliver of hope. They walked side by side down empty streets, the world pale with morning. Maya's jacket was thin, her stomach hollow, but inside, something had shifted. She looked at Shadow, and he looked back. No words, just the silent, unbreakable truth of two lost souls choosing to protect each other. That morning, Maya made a promise, not to let fear rule her, not to let the city take what she still had left. She would protect Shadow as fiercely as he protected her, and together they would face whatever the city hurled their way. Because in the darkest hours, sometimes, all you need is one friend who refuses to let you fall. Winter in the city was like a slow tightening. Every morning, the cold felt sharper, the days shorter, the streets grayer. Maya trudged through them, her legs numb from days sleeping on cement and eating scraps. Each breath burned her chest, and the world sometimes spun if she stood up too fast. Shadow walked beside her, always a half step behind, never complaining, never straying. If Maya's energy flagged, he'd nudge her with his nose, urging her forward. In the thin morning light, they looked like survivors of some long-forgotten war, two silhouettes moving through empty lots, past shuttered shops and silent playgrounds. There were good days, rare and precious. A half-eaten sandwich found on a bench, a cup of coffee paid for by a stranger, a few minutes in the library's warmth. On those days, Maya would share what little she had with Shadow, his tail thumping once in gratitude. But the good days blurred into the bad, and soon the bad began to outnumber everything else. By now, even the shelters seemed colder. The volunteers recognized Maya, but not Shadow, and rules were rules. No dogs. Sorry, honey. At first, she tried to reason with them, even pleaded, but soon she learned to keep moving. She stopped meeting their eyes. Shadow, loyal as the sun, followed, sleeping at her feet beneath overpasses and old church stoops. Food vanished. One night, Maya counted her change. Less than $1. She pressed her palm to her empty stomach, fighting back tears, feeling shame burn behind her eyes. When she did manage to get a bread roll, she split it in half, feeding Shadow first. "You need it more than me," she whispered, voice thin. He licked her fingers, gaze steady, as if to remind her that she wasn't invisible. Not to him. Sometimes, hunger made her lightheaded. She dreamed of warm kitchens and her mother's laughter, of pancakes stacked high, the sweet swirl of syrup. She dreamed of her old bed, her old life, where she didn't have to choose between food and shelter, between herself and someone she loved. By the third day of near starvation, Maya's steps faltered, her world narrowed to sidewalk cracks and the scuff of her shoes. Shadow stayed so close, his fur brushing her calf with every step. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a real meal. Her lips were cracked, her hands trembling, but she forced herself on, always searching for the next safe place, the next act of kindness. They found temporary shelter behind a gas station, curled up beside dumpsters humming with the scent of fried chicken and old oil. The station's owner didn't chase them away, but he didn't offer help either. Just a glance out the window, a twitch of the blinds. Maya tried to sleep, but shivered uncontrollably, listening to the hiss of cars and the click of distant crosswalk signals. The next morning, the cold was worse. Maya could barely feel her feet. Her throat ached. She pawed through her backpack. Almost nothing left. One protein bar, mashed and nearly stale. She unwrapped it, broke it in half. Shadow ate his share slowly, chewing as if it was the best meal in the world. Maya forced herself to chew the other half, but her stomach revolted. She gagged, swallowing hard. Everything in her body ached. She closed her eyes, dizzy. "Just a little farther?" she whispered to Shadow, voice nearly gone. "We just have to make it to tomorrow." Eh. She stumbled to her feet, gripping the gas station wall for balance. The world tilted. Shadow barked. Soft. Worried. She took one step and then another, her vision tunneling at the edges. Halfway across the lot, Maya's knees buckled. She went down hard on the wet asphalt, the shock jolting through her bones. Her backpack spilled, contents rolling, a notebook, a cracked phone, a scarf. Maya tried to push herself up, but her arms wouldn't listen. Everything felt far away, cold, distant. Shadow's nose nudged her cheek. She heard him whining, louder now, urgent. When Maya didn't move, he barked, once, twice. His paws scraped against the pavement as he circled her, the barks growing sharper, almost frantic. A few feet away, the gas station's glass door opened. Maya couldn't see the face, but she heard the jingle of keys, in a deep voice muttering, "What the hell?" Shadow barked again, louder than Maya had ever heard. A burst of sound that cut through the static in her mind. "Hey, you all right? Hey, kid?" The footsteps hurried over, crunching gravel. The voice came closer, rough but not unkind. "Hang on. I'm calling 911. Maya blinked, her vision swimming. She tried to answer, but all that came out was a weak croak. The world blurred. Bright lights, cold air, the distant wail of a siren, Shadow's face hovering above her. She reached for his fur, fingers curling tight. He didn't move. Minutes or hours passed in a haze. Maya drifted in and out, aware of hands lifting her, voices talking over her head, the clang of a stretcher, the rush of an ambulance's heater finally blasting warm air over her cheeks. Someone pressed a water bottle to her lips. She drank, coughing but grateful. Through it all, she clung to one thing, Shadow's steady presence. Even when the EMTs tried to move him, he barked and refused to leave her side, planting his body between Maya and the door. "He's my dog," she slurred, barely awake. "He stays with me." The paramedic hesitated, then nodded. "He's coming too." They made space, and Shadow leaped into the ambulance, sitting pressed against Maya's hip the whole ride. Inside the ambulance had Maya drifted, half awake, half dreaming. She heard the EMT murmur, "You're lucky. That dog of yours is a hero. Probably saved your life, kid." Maya squeezed Shadow's ear, barely able to smile. "I know," she whispered, voice fading into the warmth. As the ambulance rattled toward the hospital, Maya's last thought before sleep claimed her was simple. We made it through one more night. Together, blue and red lights pulsed on the wet asphalt, reflecting off the windows of the gas station and painting the cold world in a kind of trembling, uncertain hope. The paramedics moved quickly but gently, wrapping Maya in blankets, checking her vitals. Her skin was clammy, her breath short. Someone said the word hypothermia. Another murmured about malnutrition. She heard these things through the cottony fog in her head, their voices swirling with the distant clatter of traffic and the steady, insistent barking of Shadow. Even as they loaded her onto a stretcher, Maya's hands searched, weak and desperate, for Shadow. He was right there, teeth bared at anyone who got too close. A low growl vibrating in his chest. "He's okay," Maya rasped, her voice thin as frost. "He's just scared." She squeezed his fur as hard as she could, which wasn't very hard at all. Her heart ached with gratitude and fear. If they tried to take him away? But then, the paramedic, gray stubble, kind eyes, knelt beside her. we're not taking your friend anywhere. He rides with you." The words cut through the cold like a sunbeam. Maya nodded, barely able to smile. They bundled Shadow in a towel and lifted him into the ambulance, and the doors slammed shut. As the city fell away behind them, Maya drifted between sleep and waking, her mind floating in and out of memory. She thought of her mom's arms, of being warm and small, of pancakes and syrup and peanut butter on a spoon. She thought of all the days she'd survived, all the times she'd almost given up, and all the reasons she hadn't. The ambulance shuddered to a halt at a small hospital near the edge of the city. The ER was a blur of bright lights and sharp smells, the shuffle of tired feet and the endless beeping of machines. Shadow stayed pressed to her side as the nurses checked her over, wrapping her in heated blankets, coaxing sips of water between cracked lips. When someone tried to lead Shadow away for sanitation, he snarled, and the nurse quickly decided she'd rather not get bit. A few hours passed, time dripping like slow honey. Maya drifted in and out, head heavy, body lighter than air. Whenever she woke, Shadow was there, chin on her thigh, watching the door. There was comfort in the rhythm of his breath, the heat of his fur. She wondered, in a fevered haze, what she would have done if he hadn't been with her. She wondered how many times she had only survived because of him. Late that afternoon, the ER doors hissed open with a whoosh of cold air. A black SUV pulled up, headlights cutting through the rain. Maya barely noticed at first. She was halfway between sleep and waking, dreaming of better days, when she heard a new voice, a man's, low and startled. "Hunter?" It was the way he said it that broke through her daze, a word spoken like a prayer, like he was seeing a ghost. She turned her head, confused. At the edge of the room stood a man in his late 50s, tall, broad-shouldered, his gray hair pulled into a loose ponytail, a flannel shirt layered under a dark work jacket. His eyes, sharp blue, worried, ringed with sleeplessness, were fixed on Shadow. Maya instinctively pulled Shadow closer, but Shadow, for the first time since she'd found him, perked up and whined. His ears shot forward. For a moment it looked as if he would leap from the bed and bolt to the man. Instead, Shadow inched forward, then paused, glancing back at Maya. The man took a careful step closer. "Hunter, is it really you?" Shadow whined again, his whole body trembling, torn between old memory and new loyalty. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She looked from the man to Shadow, searching their faces for answers. The nurse, hovering nearby, glanced at her chart and then at the man. "You know this dog?" He nodded, his voice thick. "I lost him 2 years ago. He ran off in a thunderstorm. I looked everywhere. But he swallowed, and for a moment Maya saw the weight of those years on his face. Guilt, regret, hope too painful to speak aloud. He's been with me," Maya said softly. "I found him behind a diner. He saved my life." The man looked at Maya for the first time, really looked. She saw him soften, the suspicion melting into something else. "You took care of him," he said. "Even when you had nothing?" Shadow took a hesitant step toward the man. He sniffed the air, tail flicking, then pressed back to Maya's side. It was clear. He remembered, but he wasn't leaving her. The man crouched, holding out his hand. "Hey, buddy, it's me. It's Michael," his voice cracked. "Remember? I used to sneak you scraps under the table. You'd sleep on my feet during football games. Come here, boy." Shadow whined again, then sat, eyes darting between Michael and Maya. Maya tensed, panic spiking through her exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, voice raw. "Don't take him away. He's all I have." Michael's gaze snapped to her, surprise flickering. He faltered, then sat back on his heels. "I'm not here to hurt you, or take anything from you." There was a pause, heavy and uncertain. Michael studied Maya, her hollow cheeks, the hospital gown, the way she gripped Shadow's fur as if she might disappear without him. "I owe you," he said, voice softer now, "for keeping him alive, for not letting him go." A nurse cleared her throat, glancing at her clipboard. She needs rest. And food. You can talk later. Michael nodded, standing. He fished a business card from his wallet, scribbled his cell number on the back, and handed it to Maya. I'll be around, he said. If you want to talk, or if you need anything, for you, or for Hunter, for Shadow. Maya gripped the card tight. She didn't trust him, not yet, but there was something in his eyes that made her believe, just a little, that maybe not every stranger was dangerous. That night, as the hospital quieted and the rain turned to snow outside the window, Maya watched Shadow sleep. She stroked his scar, the one above his paw, and tried to imagine what it would feel like to have a home again, or even just a place where she could breathe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew, as she listened to Shadow's soft snoring, that she wasn't alone. Not anymore. And sometimes that was enough. Morning filtered through the hospital blinds, soft and watery, and for the first time in months, Maya woke in warmth. She lay still, blinking up at the pale ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the building and the low breathing beside her. She turned her head and saw Shadow sprawled along the edge of the bed, head heavy on her thigh, one paw twitching in a dream. For a moment, she didn't move. She tried to memorize the feeling, the gentle heat, the clean sheets, the certainty that nobody would shove her awake or chase her into the cold. A memory flickered, her mother singing softly while tucking her in. She let herself linger there, caught between past and present, wanting to stay. But the world waits for no one, not even girls who've slept on concrete. A nurse knocked, bringing oatmeal and scrambled eggs on a tray, her voice gentle. You're looking better this morning, Maya. Eat up. You need your strength. Maya's cheeks flushed, not used to kindness so early in the day. She sat up, propping pillows behind her, and wolfed down the food in quick, shy bites. Shadow woke at the smell, raising his head, and Maya snuck him a piece of egg beneath the blanket. He accepted it solemnly, licking her hand. The nurse pretended not to see. A few hours later, there was another knock. This one firmer, more hesitant. Maya stiffened, clutching Shadow close. But the door swung open, and Michael Dawson stepped in, hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. He looked different in the daylight. Older, yes, but also less imposing, almost awkward, as he glanced around the little hospital room. I brought you something, he said, holding out a paper bag, some fresh clothes, and a toothbrush. Hospital stuff is pretty scratchy. Maya stared, uncertain. Trust was not a thing easily rebuilt once broken. Still, she nodded and accepted the bag. The jeans inside were a little too big, the hoodie soft and warm. There was even a travel-sized bottle of shampoo. Tears pricked behind her eyes. Small things, but they meant so much. Michael settled into the chair by the window, glancing at Shadow. He slept on your bed all night, huh? Maya nodded, her fingers stroking the fur behind Shadow's ear. He's always with me. Won't leave, not even for food. Michael's gaze softened. He always was loyal. He smiled at Shadow, who wagged his tail once, almost shy. You know I called him Hunter. But you call him Shadow? It just, fit, Maya said. He followed me everywhere, like he was watching out for me. Michael nodded, voice low. That's what he does. A quiet fell between them, the kind that could have been awkward but wasn't. Maya watched the way Michael looked at Shadow, with a kind of love and relief that ached to witness. But when he looked at her, it was with something else. Respect, maybe, or gratitude. She felt it settle around her like another blanket. Unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. After a while, Michael cleared his throat. Listen, Maya, the hospital says you can't stay much longer, but I have a spare room. It's nothing fancy, just an old guest room and a lumpy couch. But you and Shadow would be safe. No rules about dogs. No rules about anything, really. Maya's chest tightened, suspicion battling with longing. Why? She asked, voice barely more than a whisper. Why would you do that for me? Michael met her gaze. Because you saved him. Because you took care of him when I couldn't. And because his voice caught. Because I know what it's like to be lost. He looked out the window, jaw working. I lost my son. Not the same way, but grief makes people disappear. And sometimes the only thing that brings us back is someone needing us. Shadow saved me before. You saved him now. Maya's hands shook. She wanted to believe him. She wanted more than anything to rest. Still, old habits die hard. You're not going to call social services? Michael shook his head. You're almost 17, right? I'm not here to take anything from you. Just offer a place. For as long as you want it. Shadow licked Maya's hand as if encouraging her. She met his eyes. Steady, hopeful, unafraid. She nodded. Okay. Relief flashed across Michael's face. Great. We can go whenever you're ready. The discharge was quick. Some paperwork, a warning about rest and nutrition, a bag of medicine pressed into her hand. Michael helped carry her things. Shadow trotted beside them, tail held high, as if sensing something good waited beyond the hospital's doors. They drove through slushy city streets in Michael's battered SUV. Maya watched the world slip by. Row houses, with Christmas lights drooping, kids bundled in parkas, an old woman feeding pigeons in the park. Her heart thudded with each turn, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. Michael's house was nothing like she imagined. A narrow row home, chipped paint, in an overgrown garden. But warmth spilled from the windows, and a faded welcome mat waited at the door. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and something sweet baking. The guest room was small but clean. A real bed, a pile of blankets, a stuffed bear with one eye missing on the pillow. Maya stood in the doorway, clutching her backpack, overwhelmed. Shadow bounded onto the bed and circled 3 times before flopping down, tail thumping. Maya smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Michael hovered awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. No strings, no expectations. But Maya only shook her head, too tired for words. She crossed the room, kicked off her shoes, and slid beneath the covers. Shadow curled beside her, his body warm and solid. For the first time, Maya slept the sleep of the safe, the kind that runs deep and dreamless, where nothing can find you. Later, when she woke to the smell of cinnamon rolls and coffee, she found Michael in the kitchen, rolling dough with clumsy hands. He glanced up, smiling. Hungry? She nodded, shy, and sat at the table. Shadow flopped at her feet, content. Michael poured her a mug of cocoa, the marshmallows half melted, and passed her a plate. They ate in quiet, comfort settling over them like sunlight. Maya looked around the small kitchen, at the chipped mug, the mismatched chairs, the dog dozing at her feet. For the first time, she let herself think, maybe I could belong here. Maybe we both could. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, home was a small kitchen, the sound of a dog's snore, and the soft, healing possibility of beginning again. Maya learned that warmth was its own strange burden. For weeks, her body still tensed every time a floorboard creaked, every time the front door slammed, every time Michael's boots thudded up the steps. Safety was a language she had forgotten how to speak. Comfort felt like a trick, as if it could be yanked away at any moment, leaving her exposed and shivering in the cold again. At night, even with Shadow curled beside her, in the soft pile of blankets, Maya's dreams sometimes dragged her back. Alleys full of hungry eyes, endless rain, her mother's voice growing fainter and fainter in the dark. She'd wake gasping, heart racing, gripping Shadow's fur. He would lick her hand or nose, tail thumping gently, grounding her in the present. Michael gave her space, as if he knew she needed it. He never pressed for conversation, never hovered. Sometimes he left sticky notes on the fridge. Coffee's on back at 5. There's chicken and rice. If you're hungry, Maya started leaving little notes back, careful and shy at first. Thanks. Shadow likes the rice. Can I use the laundry? Some mornings, she'd drift out to the kitchen and find Michael reading the paper, glasses perched on his nose, mug steaming in his hands. He'd glance up, offer a soft, "Morning, Maya," and nod toward the bread or the oatmeal or whatever simple breakfast he'd managed that day. It became a silent routine, each of them moving through the house like cautious animals, sharing small spaces, testing the boundaries of trust. But healing is slow, and Maya's mind was a battleground of fear and hope. One bright, cold morning, maybe 3 weeks after she'd moved in, she woke with panic buzzing under her skin. The room felt too small, the ceiling too low. She scrambled out of bed, pulled on her hoodie and sneakers, and tried to slip out the front door without a sound. Shadow beat her to the threshold, blocking her way with his bulk. He sat, unmovable, tail sweeping the carpet, eyes steady. "Come on, Shadow," Maya whispered, voice thin. "It just needs some air." But Shadow only cocked his head and refused to move. Maya's breath hitched. She felt the old urge to run, to disappear before someone could tell her not to. Michael appeared at the end of the hall, watching her with quiet concern. "You heading out?" he asked, voice gentle. She nodded, swallowing hard. Just for a walk. Or maybe I should go. I don't want to be a problem." Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You're not a problem, Maya. You don't have to stay, if you don't want to. But you're welcome here, as long as you need. No questions, no strings." She looked at Shadow, then at Michael. Fear warred with longing in her chest. "I don't know if I can stay. I don't know if I fit here." Michael's eyes softened. "You don't have to know yet. Sometimes all you can do is try." Maya nodded, uncertain. She tugged her hoodie tighter and stepped outside, Shadow right on her heels. They wandered through the sleepy neighborhood, down icy sidewalks, past bare trees and stoop-side pumpkins sagging into December. Shadow sniffed every fence post, tail wagging at the sight of passing mailmen and joggers. Maya moved like a ghost, barely touching the world around her. She found herself at the park, empty except for a mother pushing a toddler on the swings and a few bundled-up teenagers skating circles on the basketball court. Maya sat on a bench, drawing her knees to her chest. Shadow climbed up beside her, pressing his warm body into her side. She closed her eyes, listening to the clink of chains, the rush of distant traffic, the soft shush of wind through brittle grass. A week ago, she might have kept walking, never stopping, never letting herself settle. Now, she let herself breathe. When she finally returned to Michael's house, dusk was falling. The sky streaked gold and violet. Michael was in the kitchen, humming off-key, stirring something on the stove. He glanced up as she entered, but didn't question where she'd been. "Soup will be ready in 10, he said. "Shadow's been moping without you." Maya managed a small smile. She watched as Michael set the table, 2 chipped bowls, a loaf of bread, butter softening in a dish. It was more care than she'd felt in years. That night, after dinner, Maya found the strength to stay. She crawled beneath the blankets with Shadow, listening to the comforting creak of pipes and the distant hum of a television. She didn't run. She didn't hide. The next day, she tried something new. She asked Michael if she could help. He nodded, surprised, and together they sorted laundry, swept the porch, and bagged leaves from the front yard. Each task was simple, but it stitched her back to the world, one small act at a time. Sometimes, Maya caught Michael watching her, sadness and hope mingling in his gaze. Once, she found a faded photo taped to his fridge. Michael, younger, grinning, arm around a teenage boy with the same blue eyes. She didn't ask. She understood the ache of missing someone until it became part of your skin. Gradually, Maya and Michael found a rhythm. Meals shared, errands run, silence accepted as easily as laughter. She started to trust the house, the heater that clanked in the night, the way Shadow always seemed to know when she needed company. The low comfort of Michael's footsteps moving through the rooms. There were setbacks. Some days, Maya's fear flared, and she'd pace the hall for hours, flinching at the sound of sirens, unable to eat. Other days, the memories crowded her so close she couldn't speak. Michael never pushed. He let her grieve, let her rage, let her heal at her own slow, fragile pace. One evening, Maya wandered into the kitchen as Michael was washing dishes. She lingered at the counter, picking at a cracked mug. Thank you," she said, voice small but steady. Michael looked at her, eyes gentle. "You don't have to thank me, Maya. I'm just glad you're here." Shadow barked softly, tail wagging. Maya knelt, burying her face in his fur. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a cure. Healing was slow, a messy, halting thing, stitched together by trust and time and the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. But night after night, Maya let herself stay. She let herself hope. In the gentle presence of Shadow and the quiet, unforced kindness of Michael, she began, slowly, to believe in something like home. There is a quiet grace in the slow act of rebuilding. For Maya, it was not a sudden leap from darkness to daylight, but a careful, tentative climb, step by step, day by day, learning to trust the floor beneath her feet and the promise of a door that was never locked. Her first true test came on a rainy Thursday, the kind where the sky presses heavy and close. Michael knocked on her bedroom door that morning, a gentle rap that asked, not ordered, "Maya, I thought maybe today we could work on your papers. You mentioned wanting your ID back?" A flood of anxiety washed through her. She remembered in shards the times she'd tried before, being turned away at the DMV because of missing documents, a clerk's bored voice reciting what she lacked, the sting of embarrassment as other people watched. She glanced at Shadow, curled at her feet. He blinked up at her, warm and unhurried. She took a breath and nodded. "Yeah, okay. Let's try." Michael drove her through city streets, slick with rain, radio humming low. At the government office, he stood by her side, never once stepping ahead or answering for her. He let her do the talking, but when her hands shook, he steadied her with a look, as if to say, "I see you. I'm here." It took all morning, but by noon, Maya held a new state ID in trembling hands. The laminate shone, her picture a little too serious, but she didn't care. It was proof she existed, that she belonged somewhere, that she could step forward into the world again. That same week, Michael helped her enroll in GED classes online. The process felt daunting, the lessons difficult, but each evening she sat at the little kitchen table with Shadow sprawled beneath her chair, pencil in hand, determined. Michael sometimes hovered nearby, pretending to read the newspaper, but sneaking glances at her progress. One afternoon, as she bent over a page of math problems, she felt a nudge against her shin. Shadow looked up, eyes bright, tail thumping. Maya grinned and scratched behind his ears. "Thanks for the encouragement, Professor Shadow." The moment was simple, but she felt a surge of pride. She was learning again, thinking of the future. Small acts stitched her back to herself. She started drawing again, at first shyly, quick sketches in the margins of her notebooks, then longer, bolder pieces. She drew Shadow in every pose, sleeping, running, ears perked and curious. One morning, Michael found a portrait of Shadow taped to the fridge, the lines so alive it was as if the dog might step from the page. "These are incredible," Michael said quietly, holding the sketch as if it were gold. "You've got a gift, Maya." She blushed, not quite believing, but the warmth in his voice made her shoulders settle, her hands relax. For the first time, she thought about what she could do with that gift, what dreams might be possible. Shadow became a fixture in Michael's home, a constant presence at Maya's side and a kind of bridge between two wounded souls. The dog slept by her desk as she studied, followed her through hallways, and curled at her feet on chilly evenings as they watched old movies with Michael dozing on the couch. Maya felt her heart stretch in the comfort of routine, feeding Shadow, brushing his fur, taking long walks together through the neighborhood as winter yielded slowly to spring. With her new ID, Maya applied to volunteer at a local youth center, a battered, hopeful place near the edge of downtown. Michael drove her there for the first meeting, hands gripping the wheel a little tighter than usual. "You sure you're ready?" he asked, concern tucked into every syllable. Maya nodded, nerves churning. "I want to try." The youth center was a patchwork of color and chaos, kids of all ages darting through rooms painted with murals and quotes. The director, Miss Gomez, met Maya at the door, her smile broad and unwavering. "We always need helpers. You good with art? Or maybe tutoring?" Maya's voice was small at first. "I like to draw, and, I could listen if anybody wants to talk." Miss Gomez beamed. That's all we need, someone who listens." The work was not always easy. Some days Maya found herself flinching at raised voices or the echo of slamming lockers. But the kids warmed to her quickly, especially when she started bringing Shadow along. He would pad through the rooms, a silent sentinel, letting children drape themselves over his back or whisper secrets into his ear. There was something about his calm presence, unspoken trust, silent acceptance, that helped even the toughest kids soften. Now, one afternoon, Maya helped a girl named Jada draw her first real portrait. A quick, lively sketch of Shadow, tongue lolling, tail wagging. Jada looked at the drawing and whispered, "I never thought I could do that." Maya smiled, her heart aching with recognition. "I didn't think I could either. But sometimes you surprise yourself." As the weeks rolled by, Maya felt herself growing, her world stretching outward again, no longer only defined by loss and hunger and fear. She learned the names of the kids at the center, shared stories, laughed at their jokes. Some afternoons, Michael would stop by with snacks, waving awkwardly at the crowd before retreating to the background. Maya watched him, saw the way he watched her, pride and relief written across his face. At home, the rhythm was quieter, but no less important. Maya kept up her GED classes, studied for hours, and let herself imagine what might come next. College, maybe, a job that mattered, a life that felt like hers. One night, sitting at the kitchen table, Maya caught Michael staring at her, his eyes a little too bright. She felt awkward, unsure, but he just smiled. "You know, you changed things around here. For me, for Shadow, for yourself." Maya looked at her hands, then at Michael. "I just didn't want to disappear." He nodded, reaching over to squeeze her shoulder. "You didn't. You came back." And Maya realized he was right. She had rebuilt not just a home, but a sense of purpose, a place in the world that could not be erased by cold or hunger or the long memory of loss. She reached down, stroked Shadow's head, and breathed in the peace of that moment. Maybe she hadn't just survived. Maybe she was beginning, at last, to live. Spring in the city came shy and uncertain, damp with memory, hopeful with green. For Maya, it felt like breathing after a long time underwater. She walked through the world differently now, her steps no longer quiet and hidden, but certain. Her chin lifted. The cold ache of winter had receded into something she remembered, not something she carried. Shadow was always at her side, the anchor and compass of her new life. His fur grew glossy with real food, his eyes bright with peace. He had become a minor celebrity at the youth center. His photo hung near the front desk with a ribbon someone had tied around his neck. The children adored him. Even Michael joked that Shadow had more friends in the neighborhood than any of them. One breezy Saturday, Maya found herself standing backstage at a youth advocacy event in the city's old community theater. She wore her best jeans and a borrowed jacket, her hands trembling just a little as she gripped the index card she'd prepared. Shadow sat at her feet, unbothered by the hum of voices and the echoing footsteps. Michael was there too, squeezed into a seat in the second row, his face creased with pride and worry. Maya peered out at the crowd. A sea of faces, some familiar, many not. Kids from the center waved at her, whispering encouragement. Ms. Gomez gave her a thumbs up from the wings. A volunteer with a clipboard nodded. "You're up." Maya's heart kicked, her breath catching for a moment. She felt the old fear, a flash of not belonging, not being enough. But then, Shadow nudged her calf, and she remembered the dark winter nights, the hungers, the quiet certainty of his companionship when the city had turned its back. She drew a deep breath and stepped out into the light. The audience settled, the hush expectant. She adjusted the microphone, cards shaking in her hands, but when she glanced down at Shadow, her courage steadied. "My name is Maya Thompson," she began, voice trembling but clear. "And this is Shadow. A year ago, I was sleeping behind a diner, invisible to most of the world. hungry, scared, and certain nobody cared if I made it to morning. Then I met this dog. Just as lost as I was. He was cold and starving, but he didn't leave me. Even when I had nothing, I shared what I could with him: a sandwich, a blanket, a little hope. People in the crowd leaned forward, listening. Hey, Maya pressed on, her words coming faster, stronger. I thought I was saving him, but the truth is, Shadow saved me. When I collapsed, he wouldn't stop barking until someone came. He's why I'm alive. He's why I learned that you don't always get to choose the family you're born with. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to choose the family that finds you. She paused, letting the words settle. In the silence, Shadow's tail thumped on the wooden floor, and a ripple of soft laughter ran through the room. Maya glanced up, feeling a surge of something she hadn't known for a long time. Pride. Not just for herself, but for the journey she and Shadow had made. The crowd's attention wasn't a threat. It was a gift. I want to tell anyone listening, kids out there who feel invisible, who think nobody cares, that sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness. Sometimes all it takes is sharing your sandwich with someone who needs it, or listening when someone has a story to tell. Every small kindness opens a door. You never know how big the world might become, or who you might become, if you let someone in. She looked over to the side of the stage, where Michael stood, his eyes bright with unshed tears. She thought of the kitchen light in his home, the cinnamon rolls, the spare room made warm by simple welcome. She thought of Miss Gomez, of the kids at the youth center, of Jada, and her portrait of Shadow. She ended softly. I was just a girl with nothing but this dog. He gave me back my life. He showed me I could keep going, and for that I'll always be grateful. There was a long, aching pause, then applause, sudden and loud, filling the hall like sunlight. Maya blinked, stunned, as people stood and cheered. Michael clapped the hardest of all, tears shining on his face, pride and relief and love written in every line. Shadow barked, once, sharp and joyful, and the crowd laughed, clapping even louder. After the event, people lined up to shake her hand, to pat Shadow, to thank her for her words. Kids hugged her. Parents asked her for advice. Miss Gomez wrapped her in a tight, fierce embrace. You made a difference, she whispered. Never forget that. Later, as the theater emptied and the day faded into golden twilight, Maya and Shadow walked home together. The city, once gray and cold, felt full of color. Flowers in window boxes, neighbors waving, laughter floating through open windows. At Michael's house, Maya curled on the porch steps, Shadow's head in her lap, watching the last light fade. Michael brought out mugs of cocoa, handing one to Maya, and sat beside her in the quiet. They didn't need many words. The rhythm of home had settled into their bones. Dinners shared, chores done side by side. Shadow flopped between them as they watched late-night television or talked about plans for tomorrow. Maya let herself dream. Of college classes, of more speeches, of art hung on real walls. She thought of kids at the youth center, kids who needed to believe that broken things could be mended, that lost things could be found. She knew now what she wanted to do: help others find their voice, their courage, their reason to hope. As darkness fell, Maya scratched behind Shadow's ears and whispered, "Thank you for finding me." He licked her hand, sighing contentedly. And deep down, Maya understood. Sometimes the family you need, it isn't born into your life. Sometimes it walks into it, starving and cold, and never leaves. Remember, every small kindness is a door to something bigger. Like, share and follow our story, because you never know whose life you might change just by showing up.